Friends, family, listeners, welcome to Life and Art, a podcast about movies, culture, life, two friends talking, having a good time, and we're going to get into it. My name is Adam Garber, and I'm hosting with my best friend, David Camacho. How you
Hey
doing
there,
today,
best
Dave?
friend. I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good. Today we are going to talk about an incredible film that we both recently saw called Rental Family. Do you want to give a little synopsis of the movie, Dave, or should we just start tearing
Sure,
it apart?
sure. Rental Family's a new film. It's a Japanese production with a single American actor in it, Brendan Fraser, who's fresh off of his Academy Award-winning performance in The Whale a few years ago. And he plays a underemployed actor who lives in Tokyo. He's been in Japan for 7 years, and he ends up getting a job with a company that does something that I did not know existed. It's a real thing that's been in Japan since the 1980s, which is you can rent people to play important people in your life. Could be a spouse, could be a family member, could be any situation you can think of. And a number of those scenarios are depicted in the film, so it's kind of an interesting premise.
Yeah, the film goes really deep and I loved it. I mean, I loved every aspect of it. I love the acting. I mean, Brendan Fraser's coming off The Whale and he's lost some weight for this one, so we'll give him that, but he's still a little plump and still really raw. And I think that it just really adds to his performance. That he's not this fashionable, handsome leading man. I think it grounds the character, and it really adds to the role. And I think if more people saw this and it got more buzz, this would definitely be in the running for an Academy Award. I can't think of many people that could have pulled this role off, and really gone to this level that he does. And just his features and just his, I don't want to say dumbfoundness, but just that look he kind of gives of just it just works for the role in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's kind of playing himself. So I had an interview with him on Fresh Air, and where he talked about, where he grew up. He was a bit of a army brat, but his dad didn't work in the military. He was working for the Canadian Tourism Board. So in the same way that army brats grow up in a lot of different cities, he grew up in different countries and different cities. But originally, he's from Indianapolis. He's from the Midwest, and that's where he was born. And he spent a lot of his formative years in Canada, around Toronto. So he does have that kind of like sad sack Midwestern personality. It comes through in the role, but I think he's pulling a lot of his own personality into that character.
Yeah, it was brilliant. So if you haven't seen the movie, stop watching the podcast now because we are going to tear into it. Part of the reason I think we're doing this podcast is we're both civically and politically minded people, and I think we wanted to show how, in our opinion, movies impact our culture, our lives, and drive the body politic in a way, at least comment on it. And I think this film does it in obscure ways, but really important ways. And one of the most important things I think the movie tackles is the concept of truth. Did you see that at all in the movie, Dave?
Yeah, sure, sure, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I also thought that the whole movie is an arc and a journey to find purpose in God and in relationships. And I thought that it really delves deep and it has like different perspectives that you have an actor playing an actor that plays actors in family members or significant others or cheating wives in the movie. And there's like a window into a window, and there's a lot of instances in the movie where the director will pull back and show the Brendan Fraser character Philip watching from the outside into other people's lives, like into their windows. And I thought there was a whole escapism and a whole virtual life where he's looking from the outside into it, almost like the viewer is. And I thought there were many windows into windows in the movie, and that made it really it made it real personal for me. Did you see any of that, Dave?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that notion of acting and truthfulness is core to the film. It reminded me of a certain Vedic view on life as it is, meaning that we're all like, Shakespeare said, we're actors on a stage, right? And there's a close relation to this in the cinematic universe, I think, called the Cloud Atlas. Did you ever catch that one, Adam?
I did. Yes,
Okay.
very
You rem
long.
Very long
Um,
film. It was from the then
yeah,
brothers Wachowski back in 2012.
yep,
It's based on a novel, but the film itself is really interesting because it has all these scenarios across different eras, historical eras, but also different planets even, right?
yes.
And they span genres. Some of them are thrillers and some of them are comedies, but they have the same actors playing the roles, and that's why I saw the connection to this film in that the same actors play these personalities whose it's basically following a set of spirit souls as they reincarnate in all these different situations, right? And so one way to do that in this lifetime is to be an actor, right? As an actor, you can play all these roles. And you think about your own life, right? And you're in your life, Adam, you were a son, you were a husband, a father, a student, you had a business, so you had all these different roles that you played and inhabited. And in the film, Fraser is doing the same thing. He's parachuting into people's lives to meet their needs in that role. And so, going back to your notion of truth, I think what it's commenting on is that there's a higher truth, right? There's a real choice Brendan has to make at one point. Is he going to accept a job that he's been waiting for a long time, or is he going to stick with the job he's got, which entails certain entanglements and relationships to real people? He decides to stick with the relationship job, but it costs him dearly because he doesn't realize that those customers can also end the relationship whenever they want. His part is done. They can just cut him off like that, and then he's kind of left dangling in the wind. And I thought that was very poignant in the film, and points to this notion of a higher truth, like who are we to other people, and who are we to ourselves? Like he's left really questioning, well, if I'm just an actor in these people's plays, who am I in my own life? And so it contributes. Another theme that I wanted to focus on today was loneliness and alienation, the individual in the city. And certainly Tokyo, the most populous city on the world, is a great setting for that because it's both impersonal and strangely beautiful in certain shots. It's a Japanese production, so the cinematography is amazing, and you get these very still, very beautifully composed images of life in the big city. Did you notice that, Adam?
I definitely did. I mean, there were some times where the camera would pull back and show Mount Fuji in the background, and then you could see how the city was right in front of that. And the dichotomy between the two visions, between a pure nature, a pure beauty, and then the hustle and bustle of the city, and even the grunginess of the city. I thought it really captured that because there were a couple of moments where the Brendan Fraser character Philip would go into these grungy ramen places,
Right.
and it just felt really real.
Yeah.
And
Very
that character
authentic.
has so many arcs in this movie that it made it really special. And you can look at different relationships like you were talking about, like his relationship. He mentions at one point that he was going to play this father of the daughter, which one of his coworkers doesn't think he's ready for it at all.
Mm,
And he's like, and he's confused by that. And he's even confused because he says to the owner of the company, he says, well, I didn't really have a dad as I was growing up. So he
mm,
doesn't even know if he's capable of fulfilling this role. So he's like questioning it in himself. And then you have the role of where he has to befriend this old famous Japanese actor in the movie that has a very interesting relationship with his daughter, the old man's daughter,
right.
in that he's almost mean to her in a way because he wants to go back into his life before he was this great actor, before he had this whole career. And he wants to go back to that time, and you can feel that he has tension with his daughter because he doesn't really want to tell her about that part of his life because it was so precious to him that he doesn't want to soil the relationship with his daughter, but he's so mean to her that it almost makes it worse. And I can see that a lot of times in a lot of people's life. I mean, this movie is like a deep dive into therapy.
Sure.
And they talk about that in Japan, it's frowned upon to go to therapy. And that's why they kind of evolved this whole service. is because Japanese people would be frowned upon if they went and saw a therapist. So what they do is they rent somebody. They have these private experiences with the person, and then that's kind of how they deal with their issues and kind of try to work through it.
Well,
Um,
it's interesting you mentioned therapy, Adam, because I have a friend who's a trained therapist, and she said that there's a modality that they use whereupon, let's say there's a small group, and one person in the group needs to work through some family issues. And so they'll select people, just random other members of the group, to play the role of the father or the mother or the brother or the sister, so that this person can work through their issues in the family with these stand-ins. And somehow or another that works. I mean, it's kind of a miracle, but in the therapeutic situation, people do manage to correct whatever traumas they have, or at least deal with them with other people as stand-ins, which is exactly mirrored in the film.
Yeah, I mean, there's that first scene where Philip goes into he's running late, and kind of I think they kind of use that element of time at many different points in the movie, but he's running late to the thing, almost as an irreverence, like he doesn't respect their time, and he shows up to this. It's like he just jumps right into this role, and it's a funeral, and he's sitting there, and then all of a sudden the guy in the coffin wakes up out of the coffin, and Philip's like, oh shit. And right in the middle of the funeral, the mock funeral per se, but you don't even know that watching the movie. And then one of the other actors start telling the person that's in the coffin about how great they were and how he impacted their life. And then the guy that they're actually having the whole service for, at the end of it, he's rented this whole family of people to come and praise him. He goes, I just never felt loved or respected. And that's why he had this whole experience, because he needed to have those feelings. And I feel like so many times in life that we're missing something and we're hunting and we're searching for it. And if we could have these makeup experiences to feel what it was like to have these feelings we think we need. Maybe we don't even need them, or maybe we'll get the fulfillment just from having these set experiences. Does that kind of make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah, it does. To me, it also brings up the notion of reincarnation, right? So this is a guy who, at the very start of the film, we're at the beginning of the journey with Brendan Fraser's character, and he goes to somebody's mock funeral, right? Which is bookended at the end of the film with an actual funeral of a
Correct.
Japanese man. So you see a fake funeral of a Japanese man, an actual funeral at the end of the film. And so what happens in between, right? I think the in my mind, the soundtrack was Once in a Lifetime by the Talking Heads,
Correct.
right? So like
Yes.
you may find yourself with a
Yes.
beautiful wife, etc. And actually there is a David Byrne song in the actual movie soundtrack, right? I'm not sure which, if it's a solo or if it's a Talking Heads song, but that's kind of an interesting illusion. But it's this idea that, you're going to occupy all these different roles in your life. And actually, that scene reminded me of Tom Sawyer. If you remember, in that book by Mark Twain, he fakes his own death as well, and he does it for selfish reasons. He wants to hear what people had to say about him, right? And I'm not so
Yeah.
sure that the character in the film didn't do it for the same reason.
I think
Um,
he did exactly the same reasons.
right.
He needed that praise. He had such a low opinion of himself. He didn't think he was needed in this life. He was ready to kill himself, I think he mentions towards the end. And he just
Mm.
needed this affirmation. He needed people that he didn't even know, pretending to be people he knew, to tell him, you're wanted, you're needed, which is, in a way, we're all searching for that in life, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is not foreign to Japan for sure, this idea of reincarnation. But you remember at the actual funeral at the end of the film, Brendan Fraser's character leans into the cadaver now of his friend, the Japanese actor, and says, "We will meet again,"
Yes,
with
yes,
certainty. So there's a
yes.
real sense there of like this story is just a chapter in a longer tale.
Well, I think the Brendan Fraser character actually finds God and religion in
Hmm.
this. And when they're going on that great journey, and sometimes I might refer to as the journey or the jailbreak, because
Okay.
the old man actor feels so repressed by his daughter. It's so under her heel at that point in his life. And he's had this life of freedom and abundance and going to movie sets and being praised by others. And now he's kind of feel like he's under the watch of his daughter. And he's almost in a made jail
Yeah.
by her. And he rejects that. And they go on that magical journey. And I lost my train of thought.
No,
Sorry.
no, they go on the journey to the actor's childhood home, and
Yes.
there they dig the actor separates himself from Brendan Fraser. We don't know what's happened to him. We find him, he's digging a hole, and he finds at the bottom of that hole a canister with photos of
Yes.
somebody who's very significant to him. I think his first wife, maybe, or
No,
fiance.
yeah, no, I don't think they got married. So it's even a little bit more detailed than that because you while you're watching the film, you almost think the guy has died because he folds up all his
Right,
clothes
right,
perfectly, and the Brendan Fraser character wakes up and he's like, "Where is this guy?" Because he's gotten lost before, and the character Philip realizes this guy really has something going on. He's at the end of his life, and I think while I was watching the movie, I was like, "Oh no, this guy died." And then
right.
they quick to where he's touching the roots of a tree. And you can tell it this tree he
Beautiful.
brings him back to his childhood, and he's rubbing the roots down, and then he goes to dig up the hole, and in the hole the first thing he pulls out is a stops pocket watch, like
Hmm,
time has stopped, and
right,
this is the memory of him. And then he pulls out those pictures of his love, and he refers to this time in his life as my life before my life,
right.
which is really impactful because this guy's had like, I mean, he's like the role that he or the character that he's playing has had supposedly he's this well-known
Right, like
Japanese actor that's
Kurosawa
lived an
type actor,
incredible
like he's
life.
been in so many movies. He's core to
Yes.
cinema
Yeah.
in Japan. Yeah, yeah.
And so but it was his first love. And I think there's something beautiful about love in the movie. I remember why I was going on this because as they're making this journey down to this spot, he tells Brendan Fraser, he's like, God is in the ocean, he's in the trees,
Right,
and he's even in us. And
right,
Brendan Fraser goes, they keep stopping at different places where the guy will pray or bow or do like a little ceremony. And Brendan Fraser make this off collar remark. He goes, there's more gods in Japan than there are vending machines.
right.
Um, which is, I imagine in Japan, there are quite a lot of vending machines. I mean, they're very
Yeah. Well,
technologically
it's that
advanced.
Shinto. So Shinto is one of the major religions in Japan, and it's a pantheistic religion. So like a mountain has a god, a river has a god, and in this scene, a tree, right? So he
Yes.
goes and he touches the tree like an old friend.
Yeah. And Brendan Fraser mentions that his mother used to drag him to church when he was a boy, and that almost made him reject it. He didn't appreciate it at all.
Mm.
And that you can tell that he just God and religion doesn't really have any meaning to him yet.
Yet,
And
right,
by the end of the movie, that's the final scene as he's looking in this, he's at right at the gate of a temple, and he looks beyond these
right, right.
drapes, and
Sure.
he looks through, and then they show you what he's looking at. And what he's looking at is this circular mirror that shows his face.
Right,
And I think he puts it all together that God is inside of all of us.
right,
I mean,
right, right.
this movie was big. I mean, this was a big boy
It's a
movie. That's
deep,
what I
it's a
told
deep film
I
for
went and saw
sure.
it again with my son. And afterwards I was like, yeah, this is a serious big boy movie.
Yeah, yeah.
There's like little
There's a
things in
lot of
it, but this
philosophy.
is big.
A lot of philosophy. I like the fact that you referred to their little adventure as a jailbreak because it was that in the context of the story. But going back to the view I thought of watching the film, the Vedas are the four sacred texts from India, which informed Buddhism, which is another dominant religion in Japan, right? So it's not foreign to the culture there. But the idea is that the earth itself, this earthly plane that we operate on in this lifetime, is itself a prison. It's a reformatory. You come here as a spirit soul to work on certain relationships with people that you may have known in past lives, and you've got this life to work on it to get. And often these spirit souls that you come together as a group with are your brother, your sister, your lover, your eventual spouse, your parents. And so you're working through these relationships in this life. And so that's another aspect of the film that I thought was genius, really, was that, you saw him as a professional stand-in for these people, basically playing roles that they need to be occupied. There's a great scene at the beginning of the film. You mentioned that the film was about love. It's also about tolerance, right? Because he has to play the role of a husband, a Canadian husband. They call him the token white guy at the agency. He has to show up to this wedding ceremony, and he's actually he's freaked out by it. He doesn't want to do it, and he almost hides and doesn't fulfill the role, and he brings disrepute on the agency. But they find him hiding in the bathroom. They make him go through with it, and by his act of playing the role of a Canadian husband who's then going to move to Canada with his wife, that woman is able to fulfill her desire to be with her girlfriend. So they're going to run off to another country and be married together. But because that's looked down upon in Japan, she needed to go through this elaborate ritual where her family thinks she's marrying a man. And so that one act enabled the love of those two people. And I thought that was very beautiful.
Yeah, I mean it all goes back to where he gives up that big role because this new role, this new thing that he's found, his taught him that he can be more than a screen actor on a film or a movie superstar. He can impact people's lives. He can bring respect and closure. I mean, that was an incredible scene where he they did the same thing where the woman is with her girlfriend right after having this fictitious marriage to the Brendan Fraser character Philip, and the door kind of closes, and it closes really slow, where it blots out her girlfriend, and then it shows her, and then immediately the director pulls out and shows the from the outside of the house, and it goes back to a long shot of where they're looking outside the window at this couple, where he goes from being in their lives to outside their
Right,
lives.
right,
I
right.
wanted to mention something too. I don't know if it's you or if it's me, but I was never a huge Talking Heads fan when I was growing up, but they are definitely having a moment right now. And it just feels like every single impactful movie that's big has got the Talking Heads in it.
You know,
I,
I
I,
think
I
I
don't know
think the
what it
reason for
is.
that, Adam, is their music is kind of evergreen. And it speaks to new generations. It's just really good music and very, very deep music with a lot of meanings. I'd like to move on to that notion of truth. If you remember, there's a scene where the little girl, after Brendan Fraser's character has been exposed to be a fraud due to the kind of mess up of her mom, who basically
Well,
cut.
can we rewind more about, because I don't want to just jump over that father-daughter relationship. That's a
Sure,
big
sure,
one.
but there's one point I
Sure.
want to make here, which is she asks him, and this maybe is the core question of the film: why do all adults lie?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
super important point in the film because everything rests on that. Because in fact, everyone in the film is lying.
Yes.
Everyone, except for that little girl, everybody is lying.
Everybody is. Correct. Correct. And I think his answer is that they want to make other people feel better.
Right.
But it's not that simple because when you're lying, you almost want to make yourself feel better.
Right,
Uh,
right, which is really driven home by the scene where it's the second scene we see the agency director, the guy whose idea this whole project is, come
yes.
home. In the first scene, he comes home to his family, so it's a wife and a son,
Yep.
and it's played straight. And the second time around, the answer he gets from his family members at home isn't quite right, so he asks them to repeat what they
Yeah.
just said. And then you realize he's living in a total
He's
lie
living in a
himself.
rental family.
Right,
Exactly. I looked over at my son when we were watching the movie together and I go,
right, right.
boom. It
Beautiful
hit you.
scene.
I mean, didn't see it coming at all.
Right.
But it was everything about the movie. It was the movie
Yeah.
that you didn't know. So that when you're in these rental families, you don't know you're in the rental families. They're real. They're real. The emotions you're feeling are real. I'm looking through my notes. I'll catch up in a second, but that was something when he
Well,
first goes
one,
into the agency. Hold on one
what,
sec. When he first
okay.
goes into the agency, he goes, "What do you think we do?" And Brendan Fraser looks at him. He goes, "You sell people." And he goes, "No, no. We give people emotions.
Right.
We provide emotions for people."
Right.
And I mean, that's life. That's life. That is life.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this idea of society as a house of mirrors with everybody lying, really interesting that when Brendan Fraser makes his character Philip makes the choice to buck the system and help his friend, the dying actor, achieve his dying wish, which is to go back to his ancestral home. That is an incredible risk. He's already been warned by the daughter, do not take my father out
Yes.
on any outings. But he decides to do it and he takes him out, and the whole system comes crashing down on him. Why? Because he basically kidnaps a customer, he kidnaps a
Yeah.
client. And so the daughter calls the agency, the police get involved. They actually take him away, Philip away for questioning. And it looks like he might actually do some time for what
Yeah.
he did, this act of mercy. So it's like, you do speak in the service of a higher truth. You play this role, and then if you mess up, the whole system comes crashing down upon you, which shows that the system has every incentive to keep these lies going. You're not supposed to tell the truth.
Well, I mean, I don't want to take this too deep, but I love my son to death. But my son is a pretty good liar,
Oh,
stone cold liar.
interesting.
And after seeing the movie, and with that last scene, he looks at me after the movie and he goes, "Yeah, Dad, she was right." And he was right. I get it. He's like, a lot of
Right about
times when I
what? Right about
lie,
what?
it's because I don't want to hurt you or hurt your feelings or disappoint you. And it's because we lie because we love.
Yeah,
And
that's
sometimes
a
it hurts
beautiful
others.
summation there, Adam, that you're sharing. We lie because we love. Yeah, and those are the two great themes of the film, I think.
Yeah.
Did you get those shots in the film where you see Tokyo and the crosswalks and the crowds of people? Did you get sort of Kiyonoskatsu vibes from it? That's what I thought of. Urban alienation,
I mean,
uh,
Tokyo and
loneliness.
Japan are an enigma, especially to Americans. I mean, you just got to look at the history of America and Tokyo, and what we did to those people and how they were able to rebound, and just the way they've been able to advance their culture. I mean, just the scenes I was getting in the schools, and their art programs, and that
Yeah.
little collage she makes
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah, yeah,
jellyfish.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it was brilliant beyond anything I think they're really pushing in American schools. I mean, they're just so far beyond what we're capable of this moment
Well,
that I
I
wish we could
mean,
strive closer
they're
towards.
very different from the societies are very different. They're collectivist, like China. Their mother culture, right? They're a collectivist society. It's all about the group versus the individual. In the West, of all the Western countries, we're the most isolated and individualistic of all the Western democracies, right? So we're kind of at polar ends of that. Um, what did you think about him staring out from his Philip staring out from his apartment and watching the people in the building facing his? So it's another multi-story apartment building. And for entertainment, he doesn't flip through channels. He flips through people's lives, looking out at their arguments or
I
their
think it showed
loves.
the inner desire of the character and why this role of a rental family person would really appeal to somebody like that. That he
Hmm.
had this inner desire to get to figure out and go into people's lives. Like we all do. I am definitely a people watcher. I love
Hmm.
watching people and inventing stories in my head of what they're fighting or what they're arguing about. And I feel like technology, in a way, has ruined us all because it's actually brought us in. Now we hear the volume. We used to only see the visuals, and you used to have to use your mind and creativity to put your own words in and your own stories. And in a way, our phones have ruined us because now we get to hear what they're saying, and it just doesn't live up to the dream in our minds, in
Well,
my
that's
opinion.
very interesting. That's right. I thought another poignant moment was when he's with the prostitute. So he doesn't have a love interest in the film, but he does regularly visit a prostitute, and she's portrayed in a very human way. She's not defined by that role. She appears later, and in a surprise, he comes across her, and she's working at a kiosk or a booth at a cat festival.
Yes.
And he interacts with her, and she's presented as, a full human being beyond her particular relationship to him in a professional capacity. They can be friends, and I thought that was really interesting.
She has some brilliant insights to the daughter too. I mean, I know it's scripted and it's not real, but just her, I think, sometimes people you don't know you the best.
Sure.
Sometimes you meet people for a minute and they can figure out better than the people that you hang around all the time because in a way we live with walls and lies around us all the time. And the people that you're able to be real with might actually know you deeper than the people your family.
Yeah, yeah, and that's definitely the thematic material of the film, right? This idea of, well, who knows you best, and what defines a real relationship, right? Like, is it these people who play a temporary role who are paid to do it? In a way, I mean, it seemed like the little going to the little girl's story, her relationship with him as the absent father was stronger than her relationship with her mom, who she was with all the time and, you know, gave birth to her and they lived together. But somehow this little girl also wanted connection, also needed to have this person in her life. And she opened up to him in ways that she wouldn't do with her own mom.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's why when she found out the lie, it hit her stronger.
Sure.
And I feel like that scene where they show her finally laying down in the end in her mom's lap
Yeah.
and realizing that her mom just loved her and wanted to protect her. But she still questioned it, and she still had questions. Look, we only have about 10 more minutes left till we get
Yeah.
cut off from the program. But I wanted to ask you a couple quick
Sure.
questions.
Please do.
Would you ever use a service like this, and who would you hire?
That's very interesting, Adam, because in the interview that I just heard with Brendan Fraser, the interviewer asks him the same question, and it's in the film. Two characters,
Yes.
actors at the agency ask each other. So I was thinking about that too, and I'm not sure actually if I would want to use a service like this. I think the cost, right? It's convenient and it has a purpose, but you see the human cost of it, which is Brendan Fraser's character feels kind of like the prostitute, I imagine, kind of cast off and used, right? So when the mom says you can't come into the kid's life anymore, she's very upset that the little girl has the dad on speed dial on her mobile phone. She forbids the daughter from contacting the father. And I thought, wow, that's a high price to pay. So I guess that to me is a caution. Like you don't want to go this route because it's too painful when people move on.
That
How
makes
about you?
sense. You know, I when I watch a movie like this and when it hits me this hard, I hope to learn something from it. So instead of having a fake rental family, I hope a movie like this can give me the courage to confront people that are still living in my life that I would like to have these tough conversations that I've avoided. So, I think in the end I'd like to have some more difficult conversations with my dad that I've skirted around and been scared to say to. So,
That's
to
beautiful, Adam.
ask certain questions to, for sure.
It's a beautiful insight and a good takeaway. You know, the other film it reminded me a bit of is Wings of Desire by Wim Wenders. Do you ever see that?
Definitely.
Right. So that premise is it's an interesting film, of course, classic of world cinema. Angels, including Peter Falk of all people,
Yeah.
show up on planet Earth, and they sort of can tune into people's thoughts on a subway or sort of in a library. They can just walk through and hear what people are thinking. And to your point earlier, I think that's kind of what Brendan Fraser's character is doing. He's sort of playing this almost angelic role. So again, bringing people back to God or somehow making a connection to divinity in the film. I thought that was really, really subtle and well done.
Yeah, let's bring it one more little thing about
Let's hear
music.
it.
We'll bring it back to
Yeah.
the movie. So the first time he meets the old actor, he
Yeah.
walks into his old traditional Japanese home and he's playing vinyl jazz.
Hmm.
And just beautiful jazz music playing
Yeah. Yeah.
on the speakers. And he says all writers are thieves, and then he starts talking about improvisation.
Yeah.
And that's what I've always loved about jazz. You don't know what's coming next.
Right.
And it's kind of like acting. It's like real life. You're putting things in there, seeing what works, following the melody, and just kind of letting it roll with your life. So there are a lot of big things. I would like to see if there were any political insights that we could draw from this,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because I
I
think
think
that's part of the reason we started this thing, Dave.
yeah, the bring it to the political side. Hannah Arendt, the great philosopher who lived through the Nazi era and whose lover, Martin Heidegger, was a Nazi himself. She's Jewish, had a very complicated relationship to this. But she's famous because she came up with this phrase, the banality of evil, to describe what she saw on display at the Nuremberg trials after the war. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because what created the conditions that created the rise of Nazism and fascism in Germany was just this alienation. Alienation, sinking into the crowd, feeling so desperate for connection, so desperate for some kind of like camaraderie and society that you're willing to sacrifice and look the other way when something as horrible as the final solution is playing out right in front of you, you know. And as an American in 2025, what we're seeing in Charlotte and in Chicago, it's pretty much a mirror image of the early days of the Nazi regime, where they were pulling people out of stores, chasing them through yards, tackling them. You know, it's eerily similar, and so in a way, I took that to be sort of a wake-up call to look, we have responsibilities right now in what's happening, and we have to get involved to avoid a fate like what happened to the Germans.
Here, here, Dave. And my opinion on that is, these are strange times we're living in, and in a way, we're burning down the house. But in other ways, the truth will set you free, and that's
Okay,
what I'd like to
so
end it with.
okay, all
I
right,
think
I'm
we
good
could
with that.
all live with more truth in our politics.
Yeah. I'm up. I'm done with that.
All
All right.
right,
So
Dave.
so
Till the
final word on the film though. I highly encourage you to go see it if you haven't seen it yet. Great work of art, great film. Hope it's honored at the Oscars in
Hope
February.
so too. Hope more people get to see it because it was an incredible, incredible film. All right. Good filming to you, good sir.
Same to you, Adam. Enjoyed it.